Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up a stack of sources, articles, intelligence reports, classified files, and we're going to cut right through the noise to get to the core of a truly disturbing story.
And this one, it really does feel less like history and more like, I don't know, a warning siren.
Hmm.
The documents we have, they track this incredibly compressed and terrifying 2-week period. We're talking June of 2011.
A 2-week period that saw this cascade of just completely unexplained mass violence erupting all over the globe.
Right. And the thread that connects all this chaos, it isn't what you'd expect. It's not geopolitics. It's not some new virus.
No, it's a technological secret, a really sinister one, rooted in a classified U.S. government research project. We're talking about the weaponization of radio waves.
And not to destroy buildings or infrastructure.
Yeah.
This was designed to obliterate the sanity of entire populations.
It's just mind-boggling. The central crisis, it revolves around something called extremely low frequency waves, ELF waves.
And specifically, waves that were tuned to match human brain frequencies. It's a weapon that was developed, tested, and then stolen by the rogue physicist who created it, Dr. Patrick Morrison.
Okay, so that's the mission for this deep dive. We have to unpack this. We're going to trace this wave of calculated insanity from its quiet, horrifying start in a small village in China all the way to its climax in a chaotic shootout in a Los Angeles movie theater.
And we have to dissect the physics behind it, this so-called non-destructive weapon. And maybe most importantly, we have to get into the human drama, the high-stakes, deeply compromised pursuit led by net force. This is really where politics, greed, and brainwaves just collide. The source material, it opens in a really unsettling way. It's not with this huge explosion. It's a very sudden, very isolated eruption of familial terror.
This is the Daru Village incident in China, Wednesday, June 1st, 2011.
Exactly. And if it had been the only one, probably would have just been written off. A tragic local police matter, maybe a case of geriatric dementia gone horribly wrong.
But the narrative makes it really clear from the get-go that this was something else entirely. This was the first test, the initial outbreak of this extreme rage.
We're introduced to this figure, Old Zhang. He's 94 years old.
Yeah.
And he's already bitter. He's been forced to relocate because of the massive local dam project, and he's just stewing in this anger.
But on this one morning, that anger changes. The sources say it turns into a hot glow, right? A physical sensation.
A physical, visceral heat that's staining his every thought red. That's the language they use. It's incredibly evocative.
And the most chilling detail for me is the clarity he gets right before it happens. It's this paradox. His senses, which were clouded by age, they suddenly sharpen.
Yes. His clouded sight was clearer, his hearing keener. He sees the dawn, and the light is intensely bright, almost painful. This isn't confusion. This is not a man breaking down. This is a hyper-aware focus.
Like a neurological spike.
Exactly. An acute sensory overload just before the violence.
And then it happens, instantly. He's leaning on his cane, and his granddaughter comes over to help him inside. He thinks of her as the sow, which is just awful.
It's pure contempt. And the second she touches him, he just snaps. The cane isn't a support anymore, it's a weapon. And he moves with this shocking speed and strength for a 94-year-old man.
A jab to her belly, and then this huge blow to the side of her head. The script it's brutal. It describes the sound as a wet but satisfying crack as she goes down.
And the violence immediately becomes contagious. That's the key. His own grandson, Ming Yang, charges him.
And Ming Yang is described as the meekest man imaginable, the kind of guy who would literally step around a beetle on the sidewalk.
That guy. And he suddenly screams, "Oh, fool, I will kill you," and attacks his own grandfather with a kitchen fork. This is behavior that is just completely divorced from his entire personality.
And it doesn't stop there. The terror is generational. Old Zhang sees his great-grandson, Cheng, who's only 13, rushing up behind his father holding a fish gaff.
A gleaming fish gaff lifted over his head. So what we see is the total, simultaneous destruction of a family, all driven by this unreasoning universal violence that hits every single one of them at the same time.
If Daru was the single test shot?
Then Longhua Village was the catastrophic proof of concept. This happened just over a week later, June 10th. It's a mountain town north and east of Beijing.
And here, the insanity doesn't just flare up and die. It explodes into this unprecedented level of carnage. It lingers.
It lingers and it escalates. And the question that the investigators are asking is why? Why here?
We should probably go into some of the specific horrors because they really drive home the sheer randomness of it, the lack of motive.
We have to.
Yeah.
Take Jing Han. This is a guy whose only connection to violence was a Russian Makarov pistol he kept from his army days 20 years ago.
And he just calmly walks through town and shoots 17 people.
17 villagers, not old enemies, not people he had a grudge against, just random people. Indiscriminate. He's finally overwhelmed and literally hacked to pieces by villagers with farm tools, sickles and scythes.
And that's where the contagious part gets even more terrifying. Because those 6 villagers who just defended their town...
They immediately turn the weapons on each other.
No argument, no pause.
None. The internal reports are clear. It was an immediate shift of focus into mutual lethal rage. And the sole survivor of that brawl is then murdered himself.
By a middle-aged school teacher.
Yes. And the detail of how she kills him it's deeply disturbing. She uses a pair of garden hedge trimming shears, one quick, precise movement, and she severs his carotid artery. He bleeds out in under a minute.
And then she turns them on herself.
Repeatedly, plunging them into her own belly more than 10 times. I mean, it's a gruesome act of self-mutilation that just speaks to the profound nature of this induced rage and despair.
The carnage just kept going. There's an account of a tractor.
Oh, yes. 4 women were killed by a 5th woman who just methodically drove this old Ford tractor back and forth over them until it ran out of gas.
Yeah.
An hour later.
And then she just fell asleep.
Fell asleep right there in the driver's seat. It suggests that whatever this is, this rage, it's incredibly energy intensive. It burns you out completely and then just leaves exhaustion.
The final detail from Long Wai that stuck with me. 19 people trapped and killed in the town market.
After a single teenage girl set it on fire, the final count is just staggering. 97 confirmed killed, another 21 who died later from their injuries, 100 more wounded, all in 6 hours.
It's a complete societal breakdown. The communications were cut and the wires were burned, and the man who did it used part of the wire to hang himself. It's total psychological destruction.
But the crucial forensic signature, the thing that stands out, is the testimony from the survivors.
They all said the same thing.
Uniformly. They reported being enveloped in a killing rage that overwhelmed them. And they all insisted there was no reason, no justification for attacking their families, their neighbors.
That rules out a lot of things. It's not a drug, not some environmental toxin.
It rules out any traditional psychological trigger.
Yeah.
It sounds like being hijacked, doesn't it? Like your mind is still there, watching, but your body is being commanded by this overwhelming primal impulse.
That lack of reason, that's what points to an external force, something physiological or neurological acting directly on the central nervous system.
Precisely. And that external force very quickly made its way across the Pacific.
Which brings us to the U.S. incident, Sunday, June 12th.
This is where it hits home for the main players. This is where we get our most critical eyewitness, General John Howard.
The head of Net Force's military arm, and he's in Portland, Oregon, of all places, with his wife Nadine and his son Tyrone.
For a boomerang championship, I mean, the contrast is just surreal. A weekend of peaceful competition, and it's suddenly engulfed by this unbridled chaos. Howard's account is invaluable because he's a trained observer, and he describes people within this rough 10-mile circle centered on the Westmoreland area of Portland, just going completely and homicidally mad.
The reports are identical to what happened in China. Instantaneous, widespread, unprovoked violence.
He sees this powder blue Cadillac just plows into a group of 5 men. And why? Because they were giving the driver the finger. An utterly disproportionate response.
But the real data point for the investigators, the thing that changed everything, was Howard's own experience. He's standing there watching the chaos, and then it hits him.
Without any warning, he is engulfed by the rage. He sees a judge hit his son during a brawl, and he just screams, "Fuck!" and launches himself into this brutal fight.
He attacks the judges, a fast left hook, a right cross. The source says he straightened one out, like popping a shoe shine cloth.
And he even feels this internal irritation when his wife and daughter rush in to help, because he felt like it was his job to inflict the violence.
And that's the key, isn't it? The shared simultaneous impulse across the entire family. It hits everyone.
It hits everyone. He has to physically restrain his wife, who is also completely lost to the rage. She's kneeing the judge in the crotch, screaming, "Leave me alone, he hit my son." It's non-discriminatory. It hits a highly trained general just as hard as it hits a mother or a teenager.
The numbers in Portland were severe. 67 confirmed deaths, murders, self-defense, accidents, and hundreds hospitalized.
But what allows Howard to survive and ultimately to call this in is this sudden realization he has.
The madness just
It
stops.
stops on a dime, and he realizes he and his family were standing right at the outmost edge of the phenomenon's effect.
So it has a defined boundary, and if it stops abruptly, that implies a broadcast, a pulsed directional beam of energy that was just switched off.
Which is what finally helps NetForce begin to triangulate what's happening. They now have 3 distinct events, Daru, Longhua, Cortland, all sharing this terrifying signature of sudden homicidal group insanity.
The scale, the identical psychological profile, it all points to a single powerful common trigger. And the hunt for that source could finally begin.
So now we have to pivot. We have to go from the victims of this wave to the alleged vector, the HAARP facility.
HAARP. For years, this place has been at the center of all sorts of conspiracy theories, usually dismissed as fringe stuff.
Well, according to our source material, the truth lurking under all that speculation was far darker.
So the target,
Correct.
the high-altitude auroral research project, is located deep in the Alaskan wilderness, right? Northeast of Anchorage, near the Wrangell Mountains.
The physical isolation is key. It's this huge area that's been cleared from the dense forest, and it's in the distinctive shape of a skeleton key, which is odd.
And it's heavily secured. Chain-link fencing, razor wire, armed military guards. The sources say that's because of prior incidents, some eco-terrorist vandalism.
The official story, the one they tell the public, is that HAARP is the world's most powerful shortwave transmitter, and it's designed purely to beam high-energy radio waves up into the ionosphere to study space weather.
Which sounds pretty benign until you start looking at the unintended or maybe very intended applications they discovered there.
And that brings us to the man who weaponized it all, Dr. Patrick Morrison, a physicist, PhD from MIT. A genius, really.
But a disgraced genius. His reputation was in tatters after what the sources call a spectacular failure in his earlier extremely low-frequency experiment.
Right, with chimpanzees. That failure cost him grants, funding, his whole career, basically.
Yeah.
He was desperate for a breakthrough to get back in the game.
And he found it at HAARP. His work there, it allegedly explored generating these extremely low-frequency waves, but specifically targeting a certain range.
The 0.5 to 40 hertz range, and this is the chilling key to this entire deep dive.
Because that frequency range, that's us.
That is the exact natural frequency range used by the human brain for its most fundamental processes. We're talking about the core architecture of our consciousness.
Let's break that down a bit for you listening. This isn't like a radio signal you listen to. This is the brain's internal rhythm.
Exactly. At the very low end, 0.5 to 4 hertz, you have delta waves. That's deep, dreamless sleep. Move up to 4 to 8 hertz, you hit theta waves. That's deep meditation, creativity, memory. Then 8 to 13 hertz are the alpha waves. That's the relaxed but aware state you're in just before you fall asleep.
So if you can broadcast energy directly into that specific 0.5 to 40 hertz band, you are essentially hijacking the brain's operating system.
You're scrambling it. You're overwhelming it, forcing it out of its natural rhythm. It would absolutely explain the simultaneous, indiscriminate loss of reason we saw in China and Portland. The external stimulus is causing total internal chaos.
And the military funders, they saw this potential immediately.
Of course, the Navy, the Air Force, they were very interested in this as a non-destructive weapon technology. Imagine being able to incapacitate an entire enemy population without leveling a single city.
But wait a minute, non-destructive, that doesn't track. How can they call it non-destructive when the first tests resulted in hundreds of gruesome homicidal deaths?
Well, I think that points to Morrison losing control. The goal was probably to induce mass confusion or maybe panic, but the sheer intensity required to broadcast that signal effectively over such a large area.
The power needed.
The power needed. It resulted in this lethal resonance. Instead of confusion, they got pure, unfiltered, murderous rage. The source material calls it the devil's own music. And it was deadly.
Okay, but there's a huge physics problem here that always made this kind of thing impossible before HAARP. Alex Michaels, the head of NetForce, he points this out.
It all comes down to antenna size. It's a fundamental law of physics. To transmit a radio wave efficiently, your antenna has to be a certain length relative to the wavelength.
So for a normal radio wave, say 30 megahertz, the antenna is what, 10 meters long?
No.
Manageable.
Easy. A standard radio tower can handle that, no problem. But the waves we're talking about, the brain frequency waves at 30 hertz, that's a whole different story.
So how long would an antenna need to be to broadcast a 30 hertz wave?
1,000 kilometers long.
1,000. That's impossible. You can't build that on the ground.
It's an insurmountable logistical challenge. And that's why weaponizing ELF waves was always considered science fiction. Until HAARP.
So how did they do it? How did Morrison and HAARP solve this colossal problem?
The genius of it, and the horror of it, is that they used a natural structure that was already there, the electrojet.
The electrojet, what is that?
It's a powerful natural current of electricity that flows high above the Earth in the ionosphere. It's like a vast river of electrical charge in the sky.
So instead of building a 1,000-kilometer antenna on the ground,
They use the sky. HAARP uses these precise electronic manipulations, basically heating and modulating the ionosphere, to turn the massive flowing electrojet into a giant virtual antenna.
that is a staggering realization. So they can generate these brain frequency waves with immense power behind them over huge distances, and they can aim this invisible wave anywhere they want.
Morrison's ability to play this devil's music was no longer limited by physics, only by his desire to aim it.
And once he had that power, he needed to sell it. And to cover his tracks, he did something incredibly bold. He went to NetForce.
He walked right into their headquarters at Quantico, pretending to be a panicked whistleblower. He met with Alex Michaels.
Right, and he spins this whole story about Chinese hackers stealing the HAARP data on this mind control research. And he says they left footprints, damaged files, to throw NetForce off the trail.
It was a brilliant piece of misdirection. He establishes himself as the good guy, the reliable source, while sending NetForce on a wild goose chase after these phantom Chinese hackers.
But the NetForce investigator, Jay Gridley, he smelled a rat right away. The story was just too neat.
Too convenient. And the digital evidence didn't add up. Jay eventually cross-referenced the HAARP operations logs, Morrison's so-called calibration tests, with the exact dates and times of the violence.
And it was a perfect match.
A perfect match. The calibration tests were on June 1st in Daru, June 10th in Longhua, and June 12th in Portland. His calibration was a series of lethal open-air tests of mass insanity. So once Michaels and his team figured out Morrison had played them, the physicist instantly becomes the most wanted man on the planet.
And to catch him, they need some exceptional talent, starting with the guy hunting the digital trail, Jay Gridley.
Jay Gridley is a fantastic character. He's NetForce's digital hunter, this hacker who can't stand boring spreadsheets. He lives in this immersive world of virtual reality constructs.
Right, he visualizes computer systems as actual places, and the HAARP system, the way he sees it, is just perfect.
It's not a server farm. It's the Dewdrop Inn, this rundown juke joint on a Louisiana bayou. There's a sluggish river, a rotting dock.
And the firewall isn't lines of code, it's a person. This swarthy, bearded man wearing overalls, no shirt, and no shoes.
Who spits chewing tobacco juice. It's this perfect backwoods, deceptively simple gatekeeper.
I love that. It lets him interact with the system on a psychological level, not just a technical one. So he uses the password Morrison gave him, which is like a virtual skeleton key.
Bypasses the firewall and finds the key files in a lockbox under the bar. But this is where Jay's real skill comes in. He focuses on the why.
He finds scratches on the virtual padlock.
Exactly. To anyone else, that's just noise, a digital artifact. But to Jay, it's a huge clue. He realizes it suggests a clumsy, physical human break-in attempt. It wasn't the clean work of a top-tier hacker.
He's looking for behavior, not just code. And he reasons that a truly elite cybercriminal wouldn't be that sloppy.
His logic is so sharp. He thinks if crooks were smart enough so they wouldn't get caught, they were smart enough to make more money, honestly. This tells him that whoever helped Morrison was probably just a brute with a password.
So the focus shifts. It's not about phantom hackers anymore. It's about the professional security detail Morrison must have hired.
And Jay's search for this protector leads him to a civilian informant, a guy named Vince Patch Fiscus, who runs this well-connected Army-Navy surplus store.
And Fiscus identifies Morrison's security guy, a freelance assassin known as KS, or Killer Spook.
So now they know they're dealing with a pro.
Mm-hmm.
This guy uses a bunch of aliases, and Jay, with his love of pop culture, he immediately cracks the code.
They're all names of Los Angeles freeways. Diego, Gabriel, Harbor, Colorado.
And the one they stick with for the rest of the chase, Ventura.
But the real digital win is almost low-tech. Jay tracks down Ventura's rental car.
Just a standard airport rental. And he tracks it using the built-in GPS recovery device, the one the rental company uses if you don't bring the car back.
And the name on the rental agreement is Bruce Wayne.
The arrogance is just incredible. He used the alias Dick Grayson earlier, and now he rents a car as Bruce Wayne.
Mm.
He's not just a killer, he's actively mocking them, taunting them with comic book references.
But that ego is backed up by this chilling level of professionalism.
Absolutely. His whole philosophy is centered on Zanshin. It's a Zen concept, the idea of being completely in the moment, this state of relaxed but total awareness.
He's always in what he calls condition orange, high alert.
Constantly. He's not just checking doorways, he's analyzing the construction of the building he's in, figuring out which walls will stop which bullets. He lives in a state of perpetual readiness.
And we see that play out when those 4 U.S. Marshals show up at that militia compound in Idaho where Morrison is hiding out.
Ventura smells a rat immediately. He knows it's not a real federal raid. He reads it as a feint, a probe, probably sent by the Chinese government, who are also hunting Morrison for the HAARP data.
He's playing geopolitical chess. He sees the trap and gets Morrison out of there on a scooter to a waiting plane.
And his final conversation with Morrison is so cold-blooded. He tells him that once the money is paid, Morrison has to die figuratively, disappear completely. Or, he says, you will surely die literally.
Ventura knew that as soon as the deal was done, Morrison would become a massive liability.
Something Morrison, for all his genius, just couldn't grasp. He was still living in this academic bubble, and he had no idea how lethal the world he'd entered really was.
And this brings us to the personal cost of all this, the toll it takes on the people trying to stop it, especially Alex Michaels.
Michaels is not your typical cool-headed hero. The sources paint him as a man just crippled by anxiety and personal failure.
His life is falling apart. He's in this bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, Megan, for their daughter, Susie.
And the detail that just guts him is that Susie has started calling Megan's new fiancé Daddy B. It's this tiny thing that encapsulates his biggest fear, that his job is making him an absent, replaceable father.
There's also this immense guilt he's carrying around about his colleague, Angela Cooper.
A huge weight. Tony, his partner, left him because she thought he'd cheated on her with Cooper during an operation in London. But the source material reveals that's not what happened.
Right. Cooper actually went to Tony's apartment and confessed that Alex had completely rejected her advances.
So why did Michaels let Tony believe he cheated? The sources suggest it was just shame. Shame that he'd even put himself in that compromising position in the first place. He couldn't bring himself to be honest about his own human frailty, and it destroyed the most important relationship in his life.
It's a huge character flaw that really compromises his leadership.
It does. And then you have Tony Fiorella, who is just a force of nature.
Yeah.
An absolute expert operating at the highest level of physical skill.
She's an adept in Indonesian martial arts, right? Sarak and Bhakti Nagara Pencak Silat.
Trained rigorously since she was 13. And her conditioning regimen is just brutal. She uses things like the striking ball, a sock filled with 3 pounds of steel BBs wrapped in duct tape.
And she would just punch it and bang it against her forearms to condition her bones.
Wild. So Tony comes back to D.C. after she learns the truth about Cooper, but she's still completely conflicted. She quits Net Force over the personal issues with Michaels.
But then immediately takes a job working directly for the FBI director, Melissa Allison, as a special assistant.
Which, for Michaels, is the final crippling blow. He sees it as a betrayal, and he knows it's an oversight mechanism. Tony is now in a position to review his files, look over his shoulder, and report directly to a director who is already furious with him.
So the professional tension and the fractured personal relationship, it's all just a time bomb waiting to go off as they head into the final confrontation.
So the whole global chase for Morrison and this HAARP technology, it all comes to a head in 2 separate but connected showdowns. The first is in California.
The meeting between Morrison and the Chinese agent, Wu.
And the location for this exchange is just so normal, it's surreal. A suburban Los Angeles IMAX theater in Woodland Hills.
Trading technology that can cause global insanity right next to the concession stand.
Pretty much. So Ventura and Morrison get there early to secure the place. But Ventura, in his state of condition orange, he knows they're not alone. He immediately spots the Chinese surveillance.
The carpet delivery van across the street, the guy loitering at Starbucks.
He sees it all. But he controls the interior. He's given the regular staff 3 days off with pay and has his own security team disguised and scattered throughout the theater.
The meeting starts. Wu comes in with his laptop and this ridiculously large tub of popcorn.
And Ventura is tempted to check the popcorn for a weapon, but he doesn't have to. As the exchange starts, Wu pulls a small caliber gun from under the popcorn and fires twice, point blank, right into Ventura's chest.
But he survives.
He survives. He was wearing a blended Kevlar and spider silk vest, but crucially, it was reinforced with a titanium trauma plate right over his sternum. The impact felt like getting hit with sledgehammers, but it wasn't lethal.
And this is the moment. This is where Morrison's panic, his amateurism, gets him killed.
He completely loses it. He starts running
Yeah.
and screaming, and he pulls his own tiny .22 pistol. But he doesn't shoot Wu, the agent who just shot his protector.
No, he shoots one of Ventura's own guys, Blackwell.
He fatally hits Blackwell in the jaw and chest. And Blackwell, a highly trained professional, reacts purely on instinct. He fires back at the closest threat.
And kills Morrison, the man he was paid to protect.
In the space of about 3 seconds, Wu is dead, and the man who created the world's most dangerous weapon is dead, killed by his own side.
And Ventura, wounded but functional, just capitalizes on the chaos. He grabs the data disk and escapes.
His mission changes instantly. It's not about protection anymore, it's about profit. He decides the original $400 million price tag is too high. He'll sell the tech himself for less. His final thought on it is chillingly practical. No point in being greedy.
Meanwhile, back in Idaho, the personal vendetta is playing out. General Howard has tracked Morrison to that militia compound.
General Bullsmith's racist Sons of Pure Man compound. Howard is still seething from what happened in Portland, and he's gone rogue. But it's a disaster.
Ventura's Zanshin awareness is just on another level. He spots Howard stalking him in the dark.
And shoots him from 90 yards away with a handgun, using only the car's headlights for illumination. Howard's last thought before he passes out is just disbelief at the sheer skill of the shot.
He's seriously wounded. He loses part of his small intestine. The bullet just misses his kidney.
And the fallout for Alex Michaels and Net Force is catastrophic. He has to go to the FBI director, Melissa Allison, and admit that the whole operation, which he'd called a milk run, is now completely U-bar.
Fouled up beyond all recognition, the director is furious.
Livid. He used federal marshals. He got his military-led shot. Michaels is now on her professional chopping block, big time.
And his team pays the price, too. Jay Gridley gets ambushed trying to track Ventura's associates.
He goes back to that Army-Navy surplus store, and Fiscus's thugs, Vic and Rudy, they just beat him senseless. He suffers a cracked rib before he manages to hit the panic button on his device. It's this brutal dose of reality for him after living in the synthetic world of VR.
So the whole messy affair comes down to this one final showdown.
Yep.
And it brings Michaels and Tony back together.
In Port Townsend, Washington, at the house of Morrison's widow, Michaels has tracked Ventura there using the GPS data from that Bruce Wayne rental car.
Ventura is there to break into the dead scientist's truck to get the last data disk. But he walks right into an ambush.
General Bullsmith and his militiamen are there. Smith found out Morrison was dead, and now he wants the data disk for himself. He plans to kill Ventura and take it.
And just as this three-way gunfight is about to erupt, Tony Fiorella arrives. She'd been tracking Michaels using her new FBI access.
Her intervention is swift and absolutely decisive. She engages one of Smith's men in close-quarters combat.
And the source details her using a Serac technique, the Putarcapala, the head twist.
She executes it perfectly. A sharp, counterclockwise twist and pull. You hear a crack. She breaks the man's vertebrae, and he just drops. It completely changes the dynamic of the fight.
And Ventura, the ultimate opportunist.
He sees the chaos Tony has created, and he seizes his moment. He grabs the data disk and makes his final escape, but not before shooting Bullsmith twice. Smith survives because of his body armor.
So the chase ends, not with justice, but just with a mess.
A total mess. Ventura's gone, Morrison is dead, killed by his own guy, and the weaponized HAARP technology, the instructions for making the devil's music, is now in the hands of a ruthless, calculating assassin.
And Net Force is left with the collateral damage. Dead mercenaries, dead Chinese agents, a wounded general, and an escaped super assassin who's about to put the means of mass psychological destruction up for sale to the highest bidder. #outro. You know, when you step back from all the details, this deep dive really forces you to confront two just deeply uncomfortable realities that come out of this source material.
Yeah, it does.
First, there's the chilling, proven potential of this HAARP technology, the ability to generate widespread, non-discriminatory, murderous rage. It's not a theory anymore.
It's confirmed. That 0.5 to 40 hertz frequency band, targeting our own delta, theta, and alpha waves, it's the lethal trigger. It's the devil's own music, and it works on everyone. A general, a school teacher, a 94-year-old man. It makes no difference.
And the second reality is just the tragedy of Morrison's own arrogance and greed. The sources make it clear he could fund research if he wanted through legitimate means. He didn't have to do this.
But he chose the quick, lethal path of black market science. And he just fundamentally misunderstood the world he was stepping into. He thought he could outsmart killers and spies. And his greed, his attempts at misdirection, they led directly to his own violent, stupid death.
The central horror for me, though, is that the technology is now in the hands of a true professional, a strategist. Ventura lives by Zanshin. He treats violence not as some moral act, but as
Just business. He doesn't see the data disk as a path to global power. He sees it as a commodity. He's already calculating that he can live comfortably on half the original asking price because, as he says, no point in being greedy.
Morrison was the sloppy amateur who created the chaos. Ventura is the meticulous professional who now controls the source code for that chaos.
The scientist is dead. But the invisible lethal frequency he discovered is still out there, ready to be played. And it's been passed to an expert who doesn't care about ideology or borders, only profit.
So we've traced this wave of insanity from a village in China to the American Northwest. We know how the technology works, and we know who has it now.
And that really leaves us with the final provocative thought, doesn't it? What does it truly mean for the world when the only remaining safeguard against the mass inducement of murderous chaos, this non-destructive weapon that targets the mind, is simply the price tag set by an escaped, cold-blooded assassin like Ventura? That's the thought that should keep us all looking nervously toward the horizon.